Welcome back. And this video, we're going to be discussing getting deal flow. All right. This is one of the most important aspects of a real estate business, deal flow. If we don't have deals coming in the door on a very regular basis, chances are we're not looking at deals at all, right? And if you're not looking at deals, you're not going to find a good deal. So the function here is to really be bringing deals in on a regular basis and to create systems that help us produce these deals to analyze on a very regular basis. And when I say regular basis, 3 to 5 a week. You need to be looking at 3 to 5 deals every single week. Whatever it is you're trying to buy, if it's duplexes, 10 units or 100 units, you need to be looking at those properties, at least 3 of them a week and as many as you can handle a week, but a minimum of 3 to 5 every single week. What I have found is that you will close about 1 in every 80 properties that you analyze. All right, so if we go out and analyze 80 properties, you're likely to get 1 closing out of that. This is what I call the race to 80. So you're really trying to hurry up and analyze 80 deals so that you can get 1 that's a good deal. You can kind of start to create some trajectory here. If you're analyzing 1 deal a week, well, then you're 80 weeks away from a deal, or you'll close 1 deal about every 80 weeks or so, which is not good. If you're looking 3 to 5 a week, you'll compress that time frame and you'll actually start closing deals a lot quicker. So deal flow is the absolute backbone to a good real estate business and to real estate investing. Now, before we get started, I can tell you everything that you need to know about real estate in 2 sentences. And it's real simple. Know the values in your area. Look at more deals than anyone else. And that's it right here. If you know the values in your area, in your market, then you know what things are selling for. You know what things are worth. If you know what things are worth, then you know when something is a good deal and when something is not a good deal. If you don't know the values in your area, how are you going to know if something's a good deal or not? Once we know the values in our area, then all we have to do is just look at more deals than everybody else. It's real simple. Anything anybody ever tells you about real estate, myself included, will basically fit under one of these 2 sentences. It's either deal analysis or deal flow. All right. And so the first sentence here, this is deal analysis. We're going to discuss this in the next video segment. But here, staying ahead of the competition and bringing in deal flow on a very regular basis is what this video is about. And I'm going to show you some systems and help you create some systems that are going to be bringing those deals in on a very regular basis. All right. So what I want to do now is I'm going to break this down into 2 different types of deal size. Number 1, we're going to go from larger properties and we're going to split them into smaller properties. So I'm going to say everything under 50 units here. All right. So that's 50 units. And then this will be everything above 50 units. All right. So there we go. So if we're looking at assets that are mid to smaller size, under the 50 units, we are going to find those deals in a much different manner than we're looking at larger assets, which are 50 units and above. All right, 2 different ways of finding deals here, and that's why I'm splitting them kind of the 50-50 here. This is something I'm sort of making up out of experience. There's no law here, but it's a pretty truism, all right? So what I have found is that when you're looking at assets that are less than 50 units, you want to be going directly to sellers, all right? Sellers, not realtors. So we want to be trying to go out and meet and find that seller directly. So if this is duplexes, 10 units, 20 units, things like that, you're better off trying to create a direct contact campaign is what we call that. Okay, so what do I mean by that? It's going to be texts. It's going to be letters. Let's spell that right. We got text, letters. You might be calling. There's lots of different ways that we can reach out to owners directly. When we're talking about 50 plus units, we're going to be really discussing realtors. So I'll cover that. But sellers, going directly to a seller and trying to buy the property without going through a realtor, That's pretty much your best bet in the under 50 unit space. Most people in the business get started somewhere in here. I did. My first deal was a duplex, so I was certainly not on this side of the equation for several years of my business. I spent about 4 years in the less than 3 years in the less than 50 unit space. Houses, I built a portfolio of houses and then small multifamily, and then it grew on up until I finally ultimately got into larger multifamily. So wherever you can get started is fine. But again, if you're under 50 units, you're going to want to be trying to go directly to a seller. All right, well, step one, that means we need a list of sellers, right? Where do we get this list? Lots of different places. You could create the list by going to, say, the tax assessment website and pulling tax records, things of this nature. That's a lot of work. I don't necessarily recommend that. What I would suggest that you do is to purchase a list. All right, I don't endorse any particular company, so I'm not going to mention any here, but there are companies out there that sell and create lists. And what you're going to do is you're going to want to contact one of these companies and give them your criteria. All right, so keep in mind, the more items that you add, the larger the dollar amount per lead. So what I suggest is you call one of these companies and say that you're looking for real estate owners. They're going to want to know more information than that, obviously. So I would tell them what size range you're looking for. Real estate owners that own 10 units to 50 units, maybe 2 to 20, or whatever the case may be. Next, you're going to want to get their contact information. So definitely a mailing address, perhaps phone number, email address, if they can give that to you. Those are things that you want to get there. And the property address, that's really important so that you can kind of do a little bit of research on the property before you reach out to them. All right, so that's what you're going to want to be doing, is creating that list. Once we've got our list, you might want to be sending texts or phone calls. Be careful with some of this here because there are laws that are applicable here. I'm not going to cover all of them because they change regularly, and they may change from state to state. But just do know that when you're doing some sort of a direct contact campaign, there can certainly be some laws that are governed this. No call lists. I know that if you send out too many texts or too many emails from a particular spot, the servers may peg you as spamming and things of this nature. So you just want to kind of stay abreast of whatever the laws are for direct contact as far as text, phone calls, things of that nature. If you're going to then go out and send out letters, you've got your list here from the sellers, and you're just going to be sending out letters, there's not much law that regulates that. But that's a little bit more expensive, sending out postcards, things of that nature. But it all works. So these are ways that you can start contacting sellers directly. Another one that I did a long time ago, I don't do it anymore, but I do have some friends that still do this with a large amount of success, is what we call driving for dollars. Just ride around your city, ride around your neighborhoods, and look for properties that look distressed. Do you see a property that looks like it has deferred maintenance? Do you see a property that has tall grass or some other aspect to it that might indicate that this is something the seller may be motivated to sell? So it's what we call driving for dollars. That works real well. All right, so I'm going to get in a few more tips on this as we move forward. But now let's talk about 50 plus units. When you're talking about larger properties, you're really now working in the realtor space. All right, so realtors here. You can see all that. Now, what I always like to make the joke is hey, do you ever see a for sale by owner sign? You see the for sale by owner, FSBO, right? We ever see FSBO there, for sale by owner sign out here on a large apartment complex? Probably not. You ever see a for sale by owner sign, on a piece of cardboard sitting out in front of a 200 unit apartment complex? Not likely. You don't find 100 units on Craigslist for say, or in the classified ads. Very rare that occurs. So really what you're after here is relationships with realtors, because the larger commercial real estate is typically sold through a relationship with the realtor. All right, so if a realtor I'm working with, sells me a larger property, and they do, then I typically will relist that property with the realtor that sold it to me in the first place. So a lot of times we can have realtors that get into a relationship and sell the same property over and over and over. And so when you want to start breaking into this category here of 50 plus units, it's really about building out these relationships with realtors. Good deals don't stay on the market very long, and great deals don't come to the market at all. They're traded behind closed doors. They're traded through relationships. All right, and that's what we're after. So, typically the way this works is a property or a listing will come into the realtor. They'll get the lead, they'll get the listing, they sign up the listing, and it takes them about 2 weeks, maybe 12 to 14 days to create the property package, and that's with the charts and the graphs and the pictures, all this fun information. It takes about 12 to 14 days to put all that together. That's what I call the golden window, all right? It is in that 12 to 14 day period here that as they're getting all their marketing information ready, realtors will typically reach out to their short list of buyers. All right, and that's usually about 1 to maybe 10 people that they've been working with on a very regular basis and that they have a good relationship with. And they'll call these 1 to 10 people and say, hey, look, I got a deal. The property just came in. It's over here. It does this, it does that. Are you interested? And if they can get one of these first, 10 people to kind of buy the property, then they never actually bring it out to market at all. And that's why I say if a realtor gets a hold of a good deal and it goes out to the market, it's not likely to stay out there for very long before someone buys it. And if a realtor gets a great deal, it's likely to be sold right here to one of these people in the short list. And so your job is to build out this relationship here so that you become one of these people on the short list, right? So that's why I say focusing on realtor relationships is incredibly important. We're gonna talk about how to do that going forward. You're trying to get on the short list. You wanna be one of the first people that realtor calls up whenever there is a good deal. That is how we are going to make money in real estate. All right, so moving along, go to our next slide. So let's talk about going back directly to owners. All right, we talked about some of this here a second ago. Step one, we're gonna get a list of owners and contact information. Ran through a few ways to do that, building out our list, going to the websites. You might, buying a list is usually your best way to do it, just to be honest with you. There's not a lot of other ways to do it. If you are in the commercial space and you're looking at larger properties, you can purchase software, things such as CoStar and some Reonomy, Axiometrics. There's other different sites that we can buy access to owner information. But let me go ahead and point out, a lot of that software is very expensive. It's very good. I love a lot of the products that are out there as far as being able to build your own database and build your own lists, but they can be thousands of dollars a month. And so I don't recommend starting off with that. Very expensive. It's probably going to bring you information that's going to be an overload. It's going to be too much information early on. So don't go out and spend a bunch of money on software thinking that's the solution. It's not. Just go organic, build your list of owners, buy the list. You want to research laws about contacting owners. We talked about that. Make sure you don't get caught up in being a spammer. Don't want to do that, dirty word. And set up an auto response system. All right, that's step number 3. So how are we going to respond to these sellers when they reach back out? So let's assume that we're sending out letters, for example. That's a good cheap way to do it. You're sending out letters, we buy apartments. Fine. Are they calling your personal cell phone? Do you have time to always answer the phone? Are you going to be able to catch all those calls? Do you have some sort of recording or audio system that picks up the phone? Autoresponder. If it's an email, do you have some sort of customer service, customer retention management software, CRM software, that's going to do some sort of autoresponder for you? Whatever the case, you want something where these people know that it's not a scam, and that's your big one. When people get a letter or a postcard in the mail, right out of the gate, they're going to be a little bit skeptical. They're going to be like, hey, is this real? Is this person real? Is this a scam? These sorts of things. So your first job is to put that lead at ease. This is real. I'm a real buyer. I'm going to make you a real offer. However you do that, either an auto response or a voicemail or whatever the case may be. But think in those regards. Any kind of other auto response system that you can set up, websites are really good for this. If you set up a website that has places for you to put in the information about the property that you want to sell, that would be good. You could send out perhaps letters or texts or drop in voicemails, things of this nature that say, hey, if you're interested in selling your property, go to www fillintheblank.com, and that's your website, and there'll be a space in there that they can kind of fill in some information about their property, and then that would be a real good way to start capturing leads as well. But kind of think of it as a funnel. You got to have at the bottom of the funnel, as you buy in property, the top of the funnel, you're putting sellers in there, and as they move through your funnel, your marketing funnel, you're qualifying that property. So that's kind of what we want to be doing with that. And lastly, you want to be making offers on the first call. This is something that I see a lot of people making mistakes with, and they're not really capable of getting serious with a seller fast enough. A lot of people think that, when you get on the phone with that seller, the first time you actually have a real conversation with the seller, you need to build commonality, and you need to put them at ease, and you need to find out a lot of information, and you need to vet them, and you need to blah, blah, blah. Look, you're wasting everybody's time with that nonsense. Get to the point. Make an offer. Tell them you're serious. Tell them you want to buy the property and give them a number right there. Can you do it? If you can't, then you don't have enough information about the property, and that's a problem. So what I want to kind of show you how to do here is that we're gonna make offers quickly. All right, so I'm gonna kind of run through a few different things that I use to judge criteria and judge assets, and then I'm gonna show you some math that we can quickly kind of quantitate the value of the property and make that offer on the phone right then and there, because that's the fastest way to close, is to be able to say to somebody, hey, I'm buying real estate like yours in your area, and I'm paying about this price. Are you interested? It's right to the point. Lets them know you're serious. Once you get that out there, then we can go into all this commonality nonsense and get to know you and all that kind of thing. But that's not usually a good idea, because remember, when this person calls you, they're skeptical. Right out of the gate, they're skeptical. So the more footsie that you want to play with the seller, the more likely you are to be taken as not serious, and you're likely to lose that lead. So you want to be able to get to an offer very quickly. All right, so when we're talking about real estate, we have to know what things in the area are worth. So what we're going to start off with here is comparable sales, or what we call comps, okay? So what does that mean? Well, it means what are other people in the area paying for a property that is just like mine? If I want to buy a property that's 100 units and it's in this location and it's this old and it has these things, what are people in the area paying? I don't want to pay more than everybody else, and preferably I'd like to pay less than everybody else. But that goes back to that original statement of what are the things worth in your market and knowing the values, right? So comps. One of the first things that we want to start off here when we're talking about comps is age. You got to figure out what the age of these buildings are, right? So age, what I'm going to say is plus or minus 10 years. All right, I'm going to write that out there, 10 years. So if you show me a property that was built in 1980 and then for sale, and the realtor or whoever says, hey, this property was built in 1980 and here are some other properties that are like it to give you a valuation, and I look at these other properties and they're all built in 2015, that's not comparable. An older building, something built in 1960, 1970, is not comparable to something built in 2000. That's nonsense. And I see realtors and different people trying to do this all the time. So be careful about that. You really don't want to be looking at properties more than about 10 years over or under. So something built in 1970, I would say comps run between 1960 and 1980, something like that. If something's built in 2000, we're going 2010 back to 1990. So you get the idea. Over under about 10 years, rule of thumb. Keep it in that range and you'll probably be pretty good. Okay, location, I'm going to say plus or minus 3 to 5 miles. All right, and the closer the better. Miles. All right, so what you don't want to do on location is have someone show you a property that is, here, and then they show you comps that are all over here, and these comps are 15 miles, 20 miles away from our subject property. That's not a good idea, because depending on the neighborhood, depending on the size of the city, demographics and property types and neighborhoods can change dramatically. I'm in Atlanta, and in Atlanta we have city of 2 million people roughly, and if you look at the metro area of Atlanta, it's about 6 million people. That's a lot of people. So what I have found here in the South in general, and certainly in Atlanta, is that, within 1 mile or so, if this is 1 to 3 miles of city here, there might be 1 million people living there. You might go through 10 different types of neighborhoods in 1 to 2 miles. And so it's hard to say, well, gosh, I'm looking at this property right here, and right across, 1 mile away are these $1 million homes, and then over here is a really high net worth neighborhood and this sort of thing. Yeah, but if that's 5 miles away, that's worthless data in this city. If you're out somewhere in a very rural area, you're out in the middle of Texas, you're out in the middle of Oklahoma, something like that, and there are a lot of dead space between properties, these numbers can spread out. So maybe 3 to 5 miles in a very rural area would be an acceptable comp distance-wise. But again, the more density, the more population, the closer you want those comps to be. Sometimes what realtors will do, or sellers, realtors mostly, will pick out comparable data that's all over the board. And what they're doing is they're just showing you properties that justify the narrative they're trying to sell you. They're showing you comps that justify the price that they want to ask for that property. And be careful, because they're not lying, they just may be omitting other comparable properties that were very close to yours that don't support that sales price. So I would be very careful about doing that there, looking at things that, in this area here. I'll get rid of all this for you, but be careful about doing all that. That gets you in trouble. You're going too far out. You don't want to be out looking at properties 5, 6, 7 miles away from whatever the subject property is. So stay close inside. You'll be much, much safer. I really like comps within 1 to 2 miles or so of the asset if I can help it. And lastly, we're going to talk about size. All right, I'm going to say plus or minus about 20%. Okay, now what do I mean by that? 20%. Well, number of units basically is what I'm saying. So let's say you're looking at a property that is 100 units, okay? So if we're looking at 100 units, then I would say a comparable property would be anything over under 10 years within 3 to 5 miles. That is between 80 and 120 units, right? So if we're looking right here at 100 and we're gonna say that everything 20% above and below size-wise is comparable, well then that would be between 80 and 120 units. Now what I don't wanna see is that someone is showing me a 20-unit apartment complex and then they say, well, 2 miles down the road is this 200-unit apartment complex and so therefore it's comparable. That's not going to be a good comp. This is not the same type product that this 20 unit is. In one thing that I don't actually have listed on here that I will mention, and the main reason that we got to be careful about size comps and keeping them in order is that a 20 unit property is not likely to have the same amenities that a larger complex is. And that's the last thing that I don't have up here that I should have put here. So keep in mind, it is amenities. That's the last one here. So we have age, location, size, and amenities. All right. So if you're looking at even 200 units to 200 units or 20 units to 20 units, that's fine. But you got to make sure that the amenity package is comparable from property to property. See, this 200 unit apartment complex is likely to have a pool and maybe a fitness center and a business center and a dog park and an office where people can come in and talk to the manager and all these. These are amenities. You're likely to get more in rent for the larger apartment complex that has access to these things as opposed to the 20 unit that may not even have a pool, certainly doesn't have an office, there's no staff there, there's nobody to call when something breaks, you just have to pick up the phone, call the management company, they'll get around to fixing it. So smaller properties tend not to get as much rent unless they are much, much nicer than larger ones. So, and that's because of amenities. So you really just got to kind of stop and pay attention. Do they have the same amenity package as whatever it is that I'm looking at? And if you'll do that, if you'll make sure your age, 10 plus years, location within 5 miles, and size within 20%, comps or amenity comps are equal or close to as equal as you can get, you're probably looking at a property that's very comparable to whatever it is you're trying to buy, and that is good. So follow these rules of thumb. You should be much safer. If you don't, then be careful, because there may be a realtor or someone with some sort of agenda to sell you something that may be using statistics to kind of play some funny games. So just something to watch out. All right, so going along, we're gonna now talk about All right, so now we're going to move along and we're going to talk about making offers through the income approach. And we're going to be doing this quickly. So this is one of the other areas that I said, hey, look, when you first reach out to an owner, or an owner first calls you, you first get on the phone, you've got to make sure that you can make an offer pretty quickly. You want to kind of get to know them for just a minute and then throw out an offer. Keep in mind, when I'm saying make an offer, I am not necessarily suggesting that you go full under contract right there, or that you make an offer that is set in stone within the first 2 minutes of the call. What I'm saying is we're going to throw out a range offer. Hey, I'm buying real estate between here and here. Is that something you'd be interested in? So I'm going to kind of give the seller a generalized range. Remember, this can always be renegotiated at some point in time. You can always, this is not a contract. All we're doing is verbally making an offer. It's not binding. We're going to get the information. We're going to get the person interested, and then we're going to move forward. Here's how it usually goes, especially when you're looking at multifamily. And this is the mistake that I see a lot of people make, including myself when I was first out doing this. What I would do is I would go get a long list of owners and their phone numbers, and I would start cold calling owners. And I would say, hey, I see you own 123 Main Street over here. Looks like a nice property. Would you be interested in selling it? And they would say, sure, I'm interested in selling that property. How much do you want to pay? And I wouldn't be able to answer that question very clearly. And I'd say, well, I need some more information. And they would say, great, what information do you need? And I'd say, well, I need some financial information. Okay, hold on, let me get this straight. You just called me up out of nowhere. You don't know me, and the first thing you ask me for is a bunch of financial information on my property? Have a nice day. And that's about as well as that went. So calling up strangers and saying, hey, I'd like to buy your property, give me all your financial information so I can make an offer on your property, is not a great approach to dealing with a seller, especially one that does not know you, okay? So what I learned through a lot of mistakes and a lot of trial and error was to be able to talk shop a little quicker. And that's why I keep reiterating this point, is to be able to make that offer quickly when you get them on the phone. Okay, how do we do that? Well, you want to be able to use the income approach, and all we need are some basic numbers, and we can basically come up with a value, or at least a range, and then we can throw that out there and find out how serious our seller is, because that's what we're really trying to do by making an offer quickly. Just find out if this seller is actually serious or not, And if they're not serious, then we don't want to waste our time, and they certainly don't want to waste their time, and we'll move on. You go to your next lead. Okay, so quickly, again, now I want you to understand that we're going to cover this in detail in the deal analysis video. So this is not meant to completely teach you how to analyze a deal right now. It's just meant to show you how to make an offer quickly. All right, so using the income approach, what I'm going to do is I've got to know the rough income of the property. I'm going to want to subtract the expenses from that income, and that is going to give me my net operating income, or NOI. Okay, basic math, cap rate. And I know we haven't covered this yet in detail, but cap rate, or capitalization rate, is the formula is net operating income, which we got here, divided by price, or purchase price. If we do not know the purchase price, or we are trying to come up with a purchase price, especially quickly, then the formula is price equals net operating income divided by cap rate. All right, so all we really have to know out here is what the income and the expenses are and the cap rate in the market, and we can make an offer on the spot. All right, so cap rate in the market, or capitalization rate, that is something that you can find pretty easily. You can look around and look at a few deals in a market and figure out what other people are paying. All right, so cap rate, or capitalization rate, just quickly, again, we'll cover this more in detail later, but cap rate is a function of how valuable a stream of income is in a market. All right, so if people are paying more for a stream of income, then they are valuing that stream of income higher, which means the cap rate will be lower, okay? Because we know it's a function of price. So the higher the price, generally speaking, the higher the price, the lower the cap rate. So we typically will see low cap rates on high price or high value properties, typically. So like we have A, B, C, and D asset classes, A, B, C, D. A being relatively new, B being maybe 10 to 20 years old, C being a bit older. That's your blue collar sort of working class properties. Affordable housing falls into this range. And then D, that's your war zone. That's where a very high crime neighborhood, maybe dilapidated buildings, maybe a lot of abandoned real estate. So that's your D neighborhood. So A, B, C, D. Again, that's just a generalization. There are some idiosyncrasies to that, but generally speaking, that's pretty true. So what you would see is that the A class assets, your brand new stuff, which would typically have a higher price, is going to have a high cap rate, okay? So that's where we want to kind of make sure that we're... All right, so that's what, when you're looking at cap rate and you're looking at price, your A's, your newer properties are typically going to have the higher cap rate and the higher price. Your older buildings, your C's and your D's in theory should have a lower price and a higher cap rate. So A properties should have low cap rates. I said that wrong a second ago. So A newer properties have low cap rates, okay? Older properties should have higher cap rates. So it's an inverse relationship. The higher the price, low cap, lower the price, high cap. And the cap rate is just showing us how other people value that stream of income in the market. Okay, so what we need here now is to figure out what is our NOI, and we can conclude this by talking to our seller pretty quick. We need two pieces of information to make an offer fast. We need the cap rate in the market, and we need the NOI of the property. Not hard to come by. So what we can do is we can just look at other properties for sale in the area. You can kind of do some research. What I would recommend is that you go and look at 3 or 4 current listings. So just reach out to a couple of different realty companies. Just look at whatever deals they might happen to have on the market right now. You don't even have to call a realtor. Just go to their website and see what are the cap rate or the asking cap rates for other assets in your area, like whatever it is you're trying to buy. So let's assume that we figure out the cap rate in the market today is a 7, let's just say, right? And we figured this out through a little bit of research. Now we get the seller on the phone. And instead of saying to the seller, hey, give me your financial information, give me your profit and loss, give me your bank statements and all this kind of stuff to a stranger, which they're not likely to do, what we want to kind of say is, listen, I'm interested in your asset. I like the area. I like properties like yours. Now, number one, you should already know how many units we're talking about. So before you reach out to that owner, you really need to know how many units it is. Or if they call you and you don't know, let's just say you're riding down the street and seller calls you up out of the blue and you answer the phone, you're going to want to ask, how many units do we have here? All right. And that's information anybody will tell you. They say, well, yeah, it's 100 units. And then you can say, okay, great. What is roughly the rent in those 100 units? So that's easy. You could say the rent's $800, roughly. Okay. So now we would say income. Well, it would be $800 times 100. That's what we're making in a month, right? So then you multiply that by 12 to get annual income. So it's easy. It's number of units. As we said, it was 100. And you're asking this, I'm getting this information on the phone as I'm talking to the seller right now. Great. How many units is that? 100. Awesome. What's the average rent? Oh yeah, it's about $800 a month. Cool. So we would have $8,000 here because 800 times 100. So we get 8,000, and then you multiply that by 12, which would give us the annual income. All right. So it would be, or 80,000, times 12. That gives us our annual income. All right. Now all we need to do is figure out our expense ratio. When we're talking about multifamily, expenses usually range between about 35% to 50%, depending on the size of the property. Okay. So if we're at 75 units and up, 75 units and bigger, you're almost always going to be at about a 50% expense ratio. All right, when we start going down to, say, smaller properties, down to about 20 units, you might be around a 35% expense ratio, but you're not likely to go much lower than about 35%. So 35% or 50% of what? Of income. So we already quickly figured out that we have 100 units, they're bringing in $800 a month. So we got to figure that out. It's 80,000 times 12. Boom, there's our annual income. Okay, we can do that real quick math as you're talking to the seller. I'm still on the phone, I'm still talking to the seller. How many units? 800 bucks, 12, boom, got it. Now that we have our annual income, we can just grab an expense ratio. And you kind of need to know these in your head. But if you're looking at 75 units or larger, all you have to do is take that annual income and just cut it in half, 50%, boom. There's your NOI. Multiply it by the cap rate, done, there's your price, easy, all right? So if it's a smaller property, maybe I'll estimate 40%. Again, we're just taking a stab at it. We're not trying to come up with something that's a full contract offer, all right? So again, the conversation may go something like this. Hi, thank you for calling. You're interested in selling your property. Yes, I am. Listen, I don't have my notes in front of me real quick. Could you just tell me how many units is that? Oh, 100 units, awesome. What's your average rent on that property? Oh, about $800. Okay, great. I'm doing the math real quick. So I'm like 800 times 100 times 12, figure it out real quick. Oh, cool. Cut it in half. There's my NOI. Great. So it looks like, you'll probably be bringing in about this amount of money. Now, as I'm talking to the seller, what I'm going to do is I'm trying to figure out price real quick. So I've already got the cap rate, because remember, I knew the cap rate was 7 because I had already done the research on that. So you need to know this going into the call. Then I'm going to take the NOI, the estimated net operating income, and I'm just going to plug it in right here. So now it's just NOI divided by 7. And there's our price. Ish. All right. So again, that's not a solid contract price, but it is a way that I can quickly, within 20 seconds of talking to somebody on the phone, throw out a number. So here's what I would do. If I find that this math gives me, $50,000 a door, something like that, and I'm making up numbers now, but if I found out that, let's say that the property was roughly, per this calculation, worth about $50,000 a door, I would probably throw out a range. I would say, well, interesting, Mr. and Miss Seller, I appreciate you calling. Looks like we're paying between $40,000 and $60,000 a door for that kind of asset in your area. Does that sound like something you might be interested in? Stop. Don't say another word. Wait for them to answer. Right? I've thrown out a range, 40 to 60 grand. Hey, are you interested in that? Now, they're going to come back and they're going to say, yes, I'm interested in that range. That's interesting. Then you say, oh, okay, great. Well, for me to really tighten up an offer and make you a really, really solid offer, I am going to need some more information. Now you can ask for the profit and loss. Now you can ask for the trailing 12, things like this that are what we're going to use to actually do the true calculation. Now you're asking the person for the financials, but you're asking for financials after you've basically got their interest and you've made an offer. If you say, yeah, it looks like we're paying between $40,000 and $60,000 a door for assets in your area, and that seller says, bye, you're crazy, I wouldn't sell it for less than $100 a door. Great, thank you so much for your call. We really appreciate your time. Have a nice day. Move on, right? Don't spend your time dealing with that. So there's no point in spending all this commonality and get to know them and, getting warm and fuzzy with the seller and then find out some more information to make them comfortable. Look, you're wasting time with that. Get to the point. The point is the offer. The point is the number, and that's all any seller cares about. So the faster you get to this number, the more likely you are to actually close a deal. And so if you'll do this, you'll follow this income approach, and it's literally back of the napkin and can be done within about 30 seconds. You can make an offer on the call. If you know about a property, or if you have time to do a little bit of research before actually speaking to the owner, you can do all this before you even get on the phone call. What you can do is you can look up their property. Pretty easy to find out how many units are there. That's not hard. Just type in the address, look it up. All right, rough math or rough rent. There are websites out there that will show us rent in a particular area. There are several. So what I would suggest that you do is you just type in the address of this apartment complex into one of these rent sites, and quickly just gauge what the rent is in the market. If you don't have one of these rent sites, you can go to a leasing site. You can go to one of these sites that rents apartments in the area and just type in the address. You're just trying to roughly figure out what rent is in the area. Not exactly, but just roughly. You can do all that on your own and then come up with the rough annual income pretty quickly, pretty simple. Then we just grab our expense ratio. Is it 35, 40, 45, or 50? Cut then and multiply that. So it would be multiplying income times 0.50 if I want to do 50%. That's our expense ratio. That quickly gives us our NOI. Come up with your NOI cap rate formula. We know what the cap rate in the market is. You just plug it in, bada bing, you got yourself an offer right there. Super quick, super simple, and that's one of the fastest ways that you can get to just quickly making offers. If you will follow this, it will accelerate your offers and accelerate your closings tenfold. Promise. It helps tremendously. Don't waste time trying to talk to people on the phone that you don't need to. All right, now we're going to start talking about working with realtors. This was the 50 plus side of the equation. We're now actually looking at large properties. We want to get out and actually be building out those relationships with those realtors, getting on that short list as I talked about in one of the first slides. All right, so how do we do this? What's the best way to work with realtors? First of all, what I suggest is that you build a list of realty companies. Okay. This is a technique that I use whenever I go to a market and I am unfamiliar with the new market or I'm unfamiliar with the realtors in that market. So for example, I don't have any contacts in Dallas, Texas at the moment. I'm in Atlanta. Let's say that all of a sudden I wanted to start buying real estate in Dallas, Texas, and I don't know anybody in Dallas. Fine. What I would do, if again, 50 plus units, what I'm going to do is I'm going to figure out who are the realty firms in this market that I need to be working with on a regular basis. Why? Because those are the companies that are listing the properties. Now, I'm not talking about individual people right now, just companies. So what I do is I sit down and I start doing research. So I will go to several different websites. There's LoopNet is one, loopnet.com if you're not familiar, or Crexi, which is crexi.com. Both websites that are not great for finding deals, to be honest, but they are good places for finding realty companies. So I go to one of those two websites, or I go out online and I just start doing organic searches. And what I'll do is I'll type in, if I'm out just searching for websites or for realtors, I'll start typing in different search words like Dallas, Texas multifamily realtor, maybe Dallas, Texas commercial realtor, commercial multifamily realtor, and just keep putting those words together until you figure out who are the realty firms that show up on a regular basis. Well, those are the ones that are actually listing properties and that we're going to want to work with. Step 2, let's make a list of these company websites. So literally pull out a piece of paper or Excel or whatever the case, and literally make a list of all of these companies that we're working with in Dallas as per this example. You will find that it's probably going to be 10 to 15 companies, maybe, not that many. It's not a huge list, all right? The list is going to be made up of two different types of companies, what we call boutique firms and national firms. Your boutique firms are going to be smaller realty companies that are specific to that area. They don't cover much more than maybe Dallas or the Dallas-Fort Worth, maybe Texas area, something like that in this example. And then you have your national companies. The national companies cover, well, nationally, they cover everywhere. So those can be some very large companies out there that cover. You'll find both, and you want to make a list of all of those types of companies. Okay, now we've made our list, we've done our homework, we know who are the main realty firms that specialize in selling whatever asset class you're trying to buy, multifamily or storage or whatever the case. These companies, kind of specialize in that. All right, so I've made my list. Next, I want to go down that list and create a second list to the side of the companies, and that's going to be all of their websites. So I want to make a list of websites. I know this seems a bit lowbrow or maybe a bit redundant, but trust me, it really works. Make that list of websites. This is now going to be our target group of companies. This is going to be where we are trying to go to on a regular basis to source deals. So I've got my list, and now I've got all the websites listed out. What I want to do is go through each and every one of those websites and try and build out a profile in each of the companies, a buyer profile. So most larger commercial websites, not so much your mom and pop shop or the boutique firms, but your larger national ones, almost all of them, will allow you to log in or create a profile. Just like most websites, you want to go in, create an account, log in, create a profile, whatever that may be. What you're trying to accomplish here is to get on their mailing list, to make sure they have your contact information so that when they have deals in the future, you get notified. Okay, so when you go into a lot of the commercial realty websites and you go to build out your profile, first thing you're going to do is you're going to click on login, create profile, whatever, and they're going to take you through a series of questions. Hey, welcome to our website. What are you trying to buy? Is it storage? Is it hotels? Is it multifamily? Commercial, fine, whatever. Check multifamily, whatever it is you're trying to buy. Okay. Then it's going to say, great, you're trying to buy apartments. Wonderful. What size range? What price range? What you want to do is to start answering those questions in broad stroke answers. All right. So if the website says, gee, Bill, what size properties are you trying to buy? I would say, 0 to 300 units or 0 to 500 units. And then they're going to say, okay, great. What price range? 0 to $50 million, 0 to $100 million, whatever. So what I'm doing is putting in large parameters because the computer is essentially asking me a question. It's an algorithm, and it is simply asking me, what type property should we send you? And I want the answer to be all properties. Send me everything, right? So that's why I'm saying answer those questions in wide parameters, 0 to 300 units, 0 to $50 million. Even if that size property is way outside of your skill set at the moment or your ability to buy, that's okay. We're not trying to buy them. We're just trying to get data coming in and learn to analyze deals. So that's why I say set those parameters real wide. Okay, now we've made our list. We've made a list of the companies, of the websites. We've logged in. We've created our profile in every one of those websites. You are going to start getting inbox leads. You're going to start getting stuff sent into your email, and that's perfect because these are properties we're going to start to learn the deal analysis process with, right? It's how we're going to start getting our first deals coming in the door. We don't want to travel, and we don't want to start contacting realtors just yet. When do you reach out to realtors personally? Once you've completed the deal analysis part of this program. Once you can look at a deal, you can talk shop, you know the numbers, you know how to analyze a deal, and you can hold your own in that conversation with that commercial realtor about your underwriting, then it's time to reach out and actually have conversations with the realtor. At the moment, I'm saying don't do that and just follow this getting deals online version, and you're going to be a lot safer, and it'll help you build out relationships going forward. Keep in mind that sometimes you only get one bite of the apple. Okay, so if you start calling realtors too soon and you are not ready to be talking to realtors, commercial realtors, and you don't know your numbers and you don't know deal analysis, they may spot you as new and they may decide you're not credible. We don't want that to occur. So that's why I say kind of give this program most of it, go through most of the videos, get really good at deal analysis. Once you're there, that's your indication that it's time to actually pick up the phone and start reaching out to realtors directly. But for now, you've made your list, okay? So we've got a few leads coming in the inbox. That's great. Now what I recommend is that once a week, you go back to your list of sites and you log back in to each and every one of those websites. And that's why I had you made that list of actual websites. Log in and click on current listings. Let's just see what's for sale this week. Okay, so when you've built out your profile, and this is the majority of the time this is true, once you've given them your information, you've built out your profile inside their website, and you go back and you click on a currently listed property, it is likely to pop up a confidentiality agreement or an NCND, a non-circumvent, non-disclosure, whatever, and you can digitally sign that confidentiality agreement right there. Once you sign the CA, I'd say probably 90% of the websites will allow you to instantly download all the information that you need. That's going to be your OM, your offering memorandum. They're going to allow you to download the profit and loss, what we call a trailing 12. I'll cover that more in the deal analysis section. You're going to be able to get a rent roll. And those are the three things that you're really after to be able to start analyzing deals when you're getting deal flow, right? Because it's like, what is the deal flow? It's information. It's financial information about the property that we're going to use to evaluate the value of that property. All right. So financial data, that's what we're really after. So it's called a trailing 12 or a profit and loss in a month-to-month format, which is called a T12 or trailing 12. Again, we'll cover that more later. But so you've gone to the website, you've signed the confidentiality agreement, it's let you into the deal room. Now there's the rent roll and the offering memorandum, the pictures, the charts, the graphs, and our trailing 12. And that's what we're after to start learning how to analyze deals and to start actually analyzing deals. So again, if you'll follow that system, that's a great way of getting leads coming in, learning to analyze deals, and you've never had to leave the comfort of your office or your home. You don't have to talk to realtors, you don't have to travel, you don't have to go outside. All you have to do is just sit here on the computer and we can really learn underwriting. And that's gonna help you out when you go to the underwriting video here. So if you've done this prior to the underwriting video, you're gonna be really set up for that. You're gonna have a lot of good information. You're gonna get a lot out of that next section. All right, so let's fast forward the conversation and say, hey, you know what? You're really good at underwriting now. You know what you're doing, you're looking at deals, you got it. Okay, what now? Now it's time to start reaching out to owners, or excuse me, to the realtors. Now it's time to establish real human relationships with these realtors. Yeah, but be careful. Several tips there. Make sure when you call a realtor that you are calling about a listing they have, not something that you wish they had. That's a big piece of advice right there. Most people make the mistake of calling a realtor and saying, hey, my name's Bill and I would like to buy real estate. You know, I'd like to buy some good deals. I'd like to buy a property with a lot of cash flow. You know, come on. Like, this realtor doesn't get that phone call 100 times a day. You know, as like I make the joke, like, what, you think this realtor showed up to work today and was like, gosh, I don't know what to do. You know, I've got all this real estate laying around. I got all these great deals. I just don't know what to do. Thank God Bill called me and said that he was here to buy a good deal because I just didn't know what I was going to do with all this real estate today. Yeah, that is not how the real world works. Trust me. These realtors get inundated with phone calls from people they consider tire kickers, right? Somebody who's just window shopping, and they discount those people wholesale. You don't want to be lumped into that category of a non-serious buyer. So the best way to reach out to realtors early on is by calling them about a current listing. So don't call up a realtor and hand them a wish list of what you would like to buy. Don't call them up and say, oh, I'd like to buy this, I'd like to buy that, a property that has this number and does this and has this cash flow and has that. What if they don't have that for sale? Then you're wasting their time. Now you're asking them to remember you, take your wish list, write it down, take your contact information, and be real sure to call you in the future when that super hot deal shows up. Instead of anybody that they're already working with, instead of all the buyers that they already know and all the people they have a relationship with, they're gonna call you out of thin air with a really hot deal because you called them up one day and just told them what you want to buy. Not gonna happen. All right, that's nonsense. So what you need to do is hit that realtor about a current listing. So step one, go back to that website like we talked about. Go back up here to this website, look at a deal they have right now on that website, analyze the current listing. Get all the information you can, crunch the numbers, do the deal analysis, get all of that together, and then pick up the phone and call the realtor and call them about that specific listing. The conversation will go completely different. So if I call up and I'm like, hi, Mr. and Miss Realtor, I'm looking at your current listing, 123 Main Street, looks good. Got a couple questions? Can you answer this? Can you answer that? Hey, when are your property tours? Stop. That's what you want to do. You want to just hit them with a question or two and then set up a property tour and then go meet that realtor in person. It is when you meet the realtor that you will be able to really establish a relationship. Don't try and don't try and get to know that realtor over the phone too much, okay? That's not gonna work. You're trying to build commonality. You're really just wasting these people's time. Don't do it. Call them about a specific deal, get to the point, and then meet them on a property tour. If you will do that, you will accelerate your realtor relationship, and you will rise above all the other people that are making the mistake of just calling them up and going, hey, I wanna buy a good deal. I want cash flow. Got any real estate laying around this afternoon? They're not taking that seriously. Trust me, they're not. So this is a way that you can kind of accelerate the business and really dig in and make yourself known when you first start calling realtors. All right, this is the second round of tips for working with realtors. Tip number one, you need to know your market. That is incredibly important. Know your market before you reach out to the realtor that first time. So in the last slide, we were talking about getting information together, build your list, start logging into their website, start looking at deals. So do all that, and now know your market. All right. One of the best ways to know the market or your city or the area you're trying to buy is by realtors, OMs, or offering memorandums. So if you're following my system of going in, you've created your list of realty websites, you've logged into all of them. Now what you want to go do is pull about 4 or 5 current listings in that market from about 4 or 5 different realtors. Why? Because their information will overlap. Okay, so we already kind of talked about statistics being a little off and information not always being clear with some of these listings. So what I have found, especially like I was saying, realtor might show you a comparable data that is or is not necessarily comparable. Well, what I have found is if you will go pull about 4 or 5 different property packages from different realtors all around in that city, you will get a clear picture because they're not all trying to sell the same property. So they will all show you comparable data that'll really start to fill that picture in. So if you want to know your market, one of the best things you can do is spend a little time online, go in there and pull about 4 or 5 different realty property packages and look at the data inside that OM, right? The realtors have done the heavy lifting for us. Why go spend all this time doing market research and analytics and demographic research and all these sorts of things when the realtor has already done it? Just get the property package, not 1, but 4 or 5, go through all the comp data, and you'll pretty much have a good understanding of your market. Some other places that you can go to get some market information would be the Census Bureau if you want to kind of know about population trends, things of that nature. The Department of Numbers, literally departmentofnumbers.com. That's a government website. Department of Numbers is also a good place to go and get some market data. There's lots of different places. You'll kind of need to do some of your own research, but really understand your market before you wind up calling that realtor. Okay, next, know the listing before you call. And that's kind of what we were talking about a second ago, is really spend some time understanding a listing, looking at the property package, looking at the information on that specific property that you are calling the realtor about, right? What I mean there is don't ask questions that were easily answered in that property package. So don't call up and say, how many units was that when that was on page 1? Don't call up and say, what does it have a pool? Does it have a dog park? Things like that, if that information was right there in the property package. So make sure you familiarize yourself with any of the listing information prior to reaching out to a realtor. That'll put your best foot forward. Next, as I said a minute ago in the last slide, know how to analyze a deal before you call. This is probably the biggest one right here. If you start calling realtors and you can't talk the talk and walk the walk, they're going to spot it pretty quickly. This is a business that's very difficult to fake it until you make it. It's hard to do because people are going to know if you don't know your numbers. People are going to know if you don't understand cap rate, if you don't understand deal analysis. So really make sure that you're good at analyzing deals. Make sure you've gone through the deal analysis section of this entire program before you reach out to realtors. And then lastly, it's not a date. Don't try and date the realtor, at least not in the beginning, right? What do I mean by that? Trying to create commonality too soon on a call. It's not professional, it will come off wrong, and it makes you look like you're an amateur buyer, because believe me, us professionals don't do this, right? I'm not calling up a brand new realtor that I don't know and starting to try and create commonality early on. I'm not calling up a realtor going, hey, my name's Bill and I'd like to buy some property. So what sports teams do you like? Hey, what kind of food do you like? What do you like to do in your spare time? It's not a date. All right, that's not going to work. This realtor's immediately going to go, who is this person calling me up with this nonsense? They're not stupid. They're not going to fall for this, right? They're busy. They don't have time for this kind of stuff. They're likely to get rude with you. They're likely to shut you down. What does a realtor want? A sale. To work with a seller that's real, that can close. Why? Because that's the only thing that gets them paid, right? So you've got to come off as credible. And that's why I say in your first contact, when you first start reaching out to realtors, keep it short, keep it simple, keep it to the point. Hey, I'm looking at your property, 123 Main Street, know your market, know the listing. Hey, I'm calling you about 123 Main Street here. Got a couple quick questions. I noticed that there wasn't any financial data. Can I get that T12 and a rent roll? Great. What's the price on that? Or can you give me price guidance? All right, let me give you a side tip here. A lot of times when we see a deal listed, it says to be determined or TBD or market value or something like this. Basically, they're not putting a price on the listing. What you want to do is to reach out to that realtor, either email or however, call, whatever you do. When you first speak to them or contact them, ask them for price guidance or ask for the whisper price. All right, if you're trying to be a little more professional, you want to ask for price guidance. And so what I'm saying here is, hey, you've made the property to be determined as far as value goes, but come on, knock it off. You know what you want for the dang thing. You know what this seller wants for the property. Tell me, what's the price guidance? So I might send them an email and say, hey, I'm looking at 123 Main Street. Can you give me some price guidance? Send me some financial information, and when are your property tours? Stop. Right to the point, hit it. Get off, okay? So either price guidance or whisper price. Whisper price is a little more on the slang side, but basically that's like you're asking them, what are you suggesting the price is? Because whisper price is kind of like, hey, it's 50 a door. They're whispering this value. And you'll hear realtors say that, hey, we're whispering 50 a door. We're whispering 100 a door, something like that. So if you ever hear that, that's what they're talking about, whisper price. So those are ways that if you'll do that quickly, keep it short, keep it to the point, use some of those terms, you'll sound very credible, and the realtor will probably take you a lot more seriously, and you're going to find that your reaction from realtors is going to be infinitely better. If you're violating some of these mistakes, you're probably not getting good responses out of realtors right now. So if you're calling realtors and you're not getting calls back, if you're emailing realtors, you're not getting emails back, you're probably violating some of this. You're probably making some of the mistakes that we've already talked about, and you're probably already sitting here going, oh yeah, that makes sense. So I'm talking to you, right? Follow this and you'll be a lot better off. It's not a date. Don't try and get too cute with them too quick, all right? So next, that's it. So this has been Getting Deal Flow. I hope this helps. This should really be able to accelerate your business, you going out and looking at deals. Get out there and get them coming in. Remember, we need to have at least 3 to 5 deals every single week on a very consistent basis. Most deals are not good deals. If good deals were that easy to find, you wouldn't be watching this video, would you? So we know they're not. We know that it's difficult. We know it's a tough business. It's a numbers game. It's like anything. It's going to be one in many that turns out to be a viable deal. So we need to bring the many in. We need to analyze as many deals as we absolutely can so that we wind up getting down to a good deal, 3 to 5 a week. Under 50 units, you really want to try to reach out to those sellers directly. Above 50 units, it's all about building those relationships with those commercial realtors. So get out there, make it happen, and we'll see you in the next video.